You're listening to the Startup Soirée Podcast, episode number 12. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Startup Soirée Podcast. Today's guest is Carly Fuller from Carly Fuller Photography. This is Patrick Reif, your regular day host. Carly is going to be capturing the photographs of the March soiree event and has been running her own photography business since 2008. She has a background from the University of the Arts in photography and kind of got right into it. One of the cool things about Carly and her business is that a lot of times I think photographers that are just kind of running their own business end up having more of a lifestyle business sometimes, and Carly has really kind of blazed a path of wanting to really continually address the business aspect of her empire and kind of, not take it for granted and really kind of push it. And she has started something that's very much complementary to kind of the startup soiree ideology. She started a group called Business Brainstorming, and it kind of was born out of the kind of Annapolis breadbasket of people, and it's been really successful for a while. And now I know she's just moved to Philadelphia, so she's going to tell us about a lot of those things, but without any further delay, I want to introduce Carly. Thanks so much for being a guest today, Carly. How are you?
Thanks so much for having me. I'm great.
If you don't mind, I know that I just kind of said a lot there, but why don't you give everyone kind of a good snapshot of just how you got into business initially for yourself and your photography business and practice and what that's like for you.
Right, absolutely. Well, I started photographing when I was a little girl and have always loved taking photographs of still life and flowers, and then started falling in love with photographing people. And I went to college for photography at University of the Arts in Philly, and then really started photographing weddings in college to see, how to make this a career. How can I create a business and support myself? And from that, I started my own business 2 years before I graduated, and really just fell in love with all the theatrics and how every day is different. And the business behind it has always been interesting to me. I actually my first year of college was at University of Tampa. I went for a business degree and realized quickly that I don't need a business degree. I need to actually go study my love, which was photography. So I've always had a passion for the business side of things. And right out of college, I was already shooting weddings and, really made it a full-time event in 2008, 2009 for myself. And since then, have really focused. I think that's kind of how the biz brainstorming was born, just really wanting to be progressive and change with the times and stay on top of things, the business side, so you don't fall behind.
That's pretty awesome. I'm curious. You kind of caught my attention immediately. I'm loving that your initial reaction was to study business, and then you kind of got into it and saw very quickly that you would rather be kind of like a practitioner and implementationist as opposed to kind of like the education, perspective of kind of how you enter into business. That's kind of speaks so completely to the spirit of the entrepreneur, is recognizing that wear on the tires is so much more critical than any kind of paper. I'm just curious if you would illuminate a little bit more about that point of view.
Absolutely. Choosing a forte is so important, in my opinion, like a niche. And so when I was at college at University of Tampa for business, I realized quickly that, I don't need to be the professional stats and accountant for myself. I really needed to follow what my forte was. which was actually taking the photographs, and realized quickly that I could hire, an accountant, a person to do my stats, a person to even consult me and counsel me on what business decisions to make to start a business, and, really run with what I loved, which was capturing imagery and capturing families and telling a story. So really, that's the number one thing is when people are scared to start their own business, I find that they are almost afraid to just commit to that one item. They think that they have to wear 100 hats. Whereas if you choose to wear one hat and really run with it and throw 100% of yourself into it, you really can become successful.
Sure. It's amazing what happens when you focus.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm just curious. I mean, did you grow up with people modeling that kind of behavior?
Actually, it's funny that you that you asked that question. I have a really amazing team of parents, and my mom, she modeled that behavior, choosing one career path, and she's done it for over 30 years, and she chose her passion and she loved it, and speech pathology. So she was a very grounded individual, and the opposite was my dad, who loved everything, and if you name it, he tried to do it. So I had this balance of power, and I always saw my dad was this ultimate dreamer, and my mom was extremely grounded and realistic. And so I think that really influenced me as an artist and a business owner, and realized, I can dream ultimately, but I have to be realistic with my goals and what can I accomplish, and what makes me happy. So, so that I can finish, a goal, make a goal, set it, and go after it. So, unlike my dad.
So you can stay focused.
Exactly. Yeah, focus seems to be really something that I was raised, seeing both sides of it, and I was really wanting to be able to support myself and have a very grounded lifestyle, as I got older, and when I create a family, I want it to be, supported properly, and yeah, and really love what I'm doing.
So, what years did you attend college?
So I actually went to University of Tampa in 2003, and then I transferred to University of the Arts in 2005 and finished in 2008.
And when did you start Carly Fuller Photography?
I started photographing weddings in 2006.
In 2006, so a little bit after kind of. So when you kind of completed that pivot, you had kind of made your mind up at that point that that your trajectory was at least fairly certain for the immediate future, and you kind of hit it before even completing your degree. You started doing what you were doing and kind of went after it.
Exactly. I was really lucky to have. I've always been a very driven individual, but I was very lucky when I got to University of the Arts to have a mentor, Barbara Proud, and she still to this day is an innovator, and she's extremely inspiring to me, and my growth pattern, and really who I attribute a lot of my first shoot was handed to me by Barbara Proud, and that's when I realized I gotta go after this and make a living for photography, not just choose to do photography as a creative art process.
So we have had another guest on the Startup Soirée Podcast, Yair Flicker, who was episode 3 or 4. He was a JHU student, and he and his friend applied for some summer jobs or something like that, and they didn't get hired for them, and they were kind of, didn't know what to do, so they decided to just start this company in lieu of having gotten hired, and it kind of hit, and then it just stuck, and then they kind of ran it for the rest of the time that they were in undergrad. And then that's just what they started doing. And it's been like 8 or 9 years now. So you're kind of the second person that we've had as a guest that has, a similar story. But now I have the insight to ask you what I wish I had asked Yair, which is, can you highlight anything, whether it's something that you realized or whether it's a difference in application of your effort or your kind of concept, what it was like when you graduated? So you were running your business in one way before you graduated, and then obviously you graduated. Was there ever any thought of going and getting a job, or did you know, like, now I'm going to hit the gas and we're really going to roll with this thing? And if that was the case, what was that like? What did that mean?
Oh, right. Like the transition between
Sure.
once you have a degree and then you hit real world.
Right. And all of a sudden you have all your time to invest in this business. And it's not like graduating and being like, all right, shit, I'm going to start a business. Like, what do I got to do? And then you like bump your ass on the ground for 2 years. It's like you had been doing it. And I assume after 2 years, it was probably really, it was probably profitable for you, and you had clients and you kind of had your rhythm, but at the same time you also knew that you wanted to turn it up because that was your interest. And you came into a wealth of time. You no longer had obligations to anything aside from that.
Yeah, so absolutely. After college, so I earned a Bachelor of Fine Arts in photography. And it's hard to growing up in a community where I was so supported in performing arts and fine arts, but still people wonder like, oh, can you make a living at photography? So when I graduated college, although I was so supported, there was still that little twinkle of fear, like how do I create this to be a powerhouse, as a full-time photographer, have nothing else. And for actually 2 years, I had about 3 jobs doing my photography business and just having 2 other, random odds and ends jobs, working for other photographers, studio manager, doing digital tech work. And gosh, I was working probably every day of the week. You had time was your, enemy almost, like you had too much time. And it took me about 2 years to finally realize that I was burning my candle at both ends, and that, like you say, focus. I really needed to hone in on what I loved, why I was doing this. And that's when I really threw myself into it's my business. Carly Fuller Photography was really born as a full-time wedding and events. And that's where it came from. Also just seeing how other studios were handling their business, trying to juggle too many things is actually your enemy. So it's funny, focus is a really key word in that, especially after college. I just spoke actually at University of the Arts for a class, and they're so full of fear. And I think fear gets in the way of a lot of people's businesses and even their, minds and hearts. They'll settle for a certain job just because they're afraid to really take the leap. So yeah, it took me about 2 years to actually finally realize I've just got to be afraid, but run with it.
That's an excellent mantra.
Right.
So I'm there's a lot of spaces that I could kind of pull apart Carly Fuller Photography, but I'd really love to get into a little bit more of how business brainstorming came about, and also tell me how real quickly how old is it now?
So Biz Brainstorming, I started last May in 2014, so it's not a year old yet, but it has grown immensely, which is extremely exciting. I have a group that meets in the Annapolis, Maryland area, sometimes in Baltimore, and then we also started a group up in Philadelphia that I'm going to try to do every other month. I live in Annapolis. I was trying to expand my market to Philadelphia area. But Biz Brainstorming really kind of evolved from that whole thing of I was speaking to a few university classes, and, people ask me to have coffee on the weekly basis to just go over their business ideas and just try to figure out their own dream. And I realized quickly, I needed to create a group where people could sit around, round table and really just throw out their dreams and their goals and their ideas and have, experienced professionals in the fields give input. So that's where that was born. And really keeping it like a positive platform. I think that was also, as like I said, fear gets in so many people's way of starting a business, and having trustworthy people to go and speak to on a monthly basis seems to be so helpful for everyone.
So how did you put together the content of business brainstorming? What is your average what is your session like? Unfortunately, it's something that I've put on my calendar literally like 3 or 4 months in a row, and for one reason or another it's gotten shoved off. But what's the how's it go? What's the run of show like?
So it's about 2 hours. We meet at local industry places like cake shops, pastry shops, catering locations, venues, and it's about 2 hours long. I started out by just introductions, and then it's really organic in the way where topics and ideas come from. Every person typically comes with something like a burning thought, what they want to talk about, and each topic is kept to 15 minutes. So during that 15 minutes of time, they introduce what is on their mind, what they'd like input on, and then the group is opened up and everyone, just like a regular natural conversation, chimes in on, their opinion, what their experience is, just to try to help them evolve their idea. And, the time flies, and after 2 hours, we're all pretty much still talking and stay around for about a half an hour to 45 minutes, just light networking afterwards.
That's awesome. So how was the first Philadelphia chapter?
So it's great. I had one in September to kind of test it out to see interest, and then I started the groups last week actually, and we had about 12 people, and the conversations were so awesome. We actually then all went out to lunch together afterwards. So everyone really seemed to click. The group started in May at about 20 people in Maryland and has grown to like 45 almost every month. So it's nice when the numbers are around 20 people, because everybody can kind of chime in and be a part of the discussion.
Sure. That's awesome. Well, congratulations on so much success with that. It must be really gratifying to have it kind of naturally start to bloom in other areas.
It is. It really is. And I'm so grateful that there's so many people that are out there that feel comfortable to come, and they come actually every month, and are really gaining a lot from the experience. And I get emails and calls pretty often, people saying that this is the most like positive experience that they've had to learn like new business ideas or new business skills. We spent 2 months in Annapolis discussing like just taxes and finances, and I had a couple guests. We also had a contract lawyer come in just to talk about things that often we're just Googling or trying to search ourselves. So it's sometimes really great to actually get to speak with that professional.
So I think we have time for probably one more question before the wrap up. I'm seeing that you do obviously a lot of work in the Mid-Atlantic area, but also looks like you're doing a lot of destination stuff as well. I'm curious if you have a favorite place that you like to photograph, whether it's a city or if it's a venue that's here in Maryland or something like that.
Oh wow, that's a hard question, because I love to travel ever since I was a little girl. I mean, I was in Spain when I was 4 years old, and my dad loved to travel, so I'm always trying to see a new city. I'm actually going to Charleston in April, but my hometown is Annapolis, and I absolutely love Annapolis. I have lived in Philadelphia, I've lived in Boston, and at the end of the day, I came back to Annapolis. So, I'm a Maryland girl, I love Old Bay, but the shores of like Maryland and New Jersey are just gorgeous, like Cape May, and I have yet to shoot a wedding in Cape May, and that's probably at the top of my list right now. So
For all you people out there with beautiful Cape May, New Jersey weddings, I've got the photographer for you.
That's right.
And now you have the leverage to get a really good price because she's just dying to come over the ferry.
That's right, exactly.
I'll be heading into Lewis. Lewes. Which one is it? Is it Lewis or is it Lewes?
Oh, I say Lewis. Yeah. But
I've been on the other side of a pastry with many a townie there and had them beat me down either way. So whatever's cool with me. Exactly. Well, Carly, I definitely really appreciate you taking time to record this podcast today, but also for coming and being the photographer for the March Startup Soirée event. It's going to be a great one again, and one of the things that we've kind of been a hidden benefit so far has been we've been having photographers come in and capture the event, and it's really fun to get to see different people's perspective and how they capture it. So totally stoked to see what you come up with. Before we break off though, if you don't mind, let everyone out there know the best places to contact you and your website and anything else that you want to share, and then we'll wrap it up.
Great. Yeah, I'm so excited for next week. I can't wait to be a part of your Startup Soirée. And you can contact me at carlyfuller.com, or you can even give me a call, 410-562-8983. But the best way to get in touch with me is by email. So carly@carlyfuller.com.
Perfect. All right, guys. That wraps it up for us. Another episode of the Startup Soirée Podcast. I want to thank you all for tuning in. You're going to see some new creative things coming your way in the next few weeks on the Startup Soirée Podcast. We're going to do a cool session where we're going to have a tip from some business legal each episode for a few weeks in a row. And hopefully some other creative stuff as well. If you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button on your podcast player so that way we show up every week on the reg for you. And also, if you could take a little bit of time and head over to the iTunes store and leave us a quick review, a little bit goes a long way. Aside from that, I don't think I have too much else. I'm totally stoked for this month's Startup Soirée.
Absolutely. And do you guys have a hashtag?
Do we have a hashtag? We have two hashtags. So one is BeMoreFounder with just BMORE founder. And then the other one that we've been using is Startup Soirée because we found out, we played with the idea of using it, and then we found out somebody threw a party with the same name, but just one party, and we were like, oh no, we got to get all over that before it's too late. So now we're kind of rocking both of those. So those are our two hashtags. Well, Carly, thank you so much for taking some time today. I look forward to seeing you.
Thank you, Patrick.
Hey, have a great one.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. Well, there you have it, another episode of the Startup Soirée Podcast. I want to thank today's guest, Carly Fuller. Check out her website. You can find links to it in the show notes. Appreciate the company this afternoon. A lot of fun things coming up on the horizon for Startup Soirée. A lot of really fun guests coming. I want to encourage everybody to make sure you get on the newsletter list. Hit the subscribe button. Check us out on Facebook. We're doing some cool videos worthwhile tuning into. Send me some comments. Holler at us. Let us know what you think, what you want to see. More guest bloggers, more podcasts coming. Holy moly, here we go. Okay, guys, this is Patrick Reif. Until next time, peace.